Months have passed, and Machio has already built several pens for the cows and chickens that Flora and Tia brought back then. The milk produced by Machio's wives. The milk produced by the cows is abundant and sufficient for their daily needs. Also, chickens have laid many eggs. Shortly after, Zabathan rang the village bell again because something was in the forest. Maria immediately reports to Machio that an emissary from the Demon King has suddenly come to the Teju village area. Then Machio, Rue, and Tia immediately meet that person, who turns out to be Bizzle, the advisor to the Demon King. Bizzle wants to meet the leader of this territory. In Machio's mind, this was his first job as village chief, so he must do his best and choose a good decision or negotiation. Machio starts approaching Bizzle and introduces himself as the village chief in Teju village. Then Bizzle said that the Demon King wanted to get acquainted with Machio. The Demon King brought this potion gift as a token of introduction between the Demon Kingdom and Teju village. Machio is grateful for the gifts that Bizzle and the Demon King gave him. Rue looks really happy as she holds the potion from the Demon King. Then Bizzle said that the Demon King wanted to negotiate with Machio about Teju village. After hearing that, Machio thought that maybe this Demon King's negotiating intent was for the payment of the tax rate. This was the Demon King's territory, so it was only natural that Machio would have to pay taxes to him. Then Machio tells Bizzle that Teju village will give 10% of the harvest if the Demon King allows them to live in his territory. But the Demon King has to order his servants to come here every winter so they can take Teju village's crops. In Machio's mind, he didn't want the Demon King to become his enemy, and that's why he dared to share his farm's crops. Then Bizzle was shocked after hearing the negotiation from Machio. After that, Machio signed the document that Bizzle had brought. The stipulation was that Teju village only gave vegetables and fruit to the Demon King. Teju village does not hand over milk, wine, eggs, honey, or anything processed or animal derived. The Demon Kingdom has to buy all of that if the Demon King wants it, which already falls into the trade category. Then Machio gave many apples in return for the gift the Demon King gave. After Bizzle left there, Tia, Ria, Anne, and Rue were amazed at Machio's intelligence. The tax rate was usually 50 or 60%, but Machio negotiated a 10% rate with the Demon Lord. Thus, Teju village came under the protection of the Demon King's military army at a low tax rate. Moreover, Machio ordered them to collect Teju village's harvest in winter once a year, so the villagers of Teju don't need to bother handing the crops to the Demon Kingdom. After all, they didn't know that the development of Machio's farm was unbelievably fast. Rue was also very happy that the Demon King gave this precious potion as an introductory gift. After hearing that, Machio didn't understand what his wives meant. Machio only negotiated according to what was on his mind, and didn't know any standards in this world. At night, Bizzle reported Machio's negotiations to the Demon King Randon and Heavenly King Blatt. Of course, they were surprised that Machio acknowledged the Demon King's existence and military forces. Even though the Demon King didn't suffer any losses, what was hard to believe was the decision made by Machio. Teju village has extraordinary power because it can defeat the strongest rare wyvern. Even Bizzle was very scared and trembling when he was there. They consist of various races, especially the vampire princess, and the angel race have great destructive power. Then there are the inferno or demonic wolves, which are numerous and countless. There are high elf races who also have extraordinary war strategy powers and are versatile in many things. Finally, the special assassin angel knight is hard to beat. But Teju village wanted to submit and obey the Demon King with just negotiations like this. Bizzle will not be able to refuse Teju village's offer to become part of the Demon Kingdom. If Bizzle refused the previous negotiation, of course, Teju village would become an enemy to the Demon King. Even the Teju village could annihilate this kingdom in an instant with the mad army they had. Luckily, Machio chose the path of peace, and Teju village's existence would not threaten the Demon Kingdom. Then Blatt opened the gifts given by Teju village. Initially, Randon, the Demon King, did not allow Blatt to eat the apple, but Blatt still wants to try it as a test. Is there any poison? When Blatt ate the apple, he was very happy because there was no poison in it, and it tasted very delicious. Then Bizzle realized that the cloth made for this gift wrap was the sewing of the greater demon spider, the highest level of demon spider and having defeated a Demon King before Randon back then. Of course, Blatt was surprised because Teju village really had the strongest military force. Randon was speechless because he was frightened by the power of Teju village. No wonder Machio's wives fainted when Machio introduced Zabathan to them. Turns out Zabathan is a greater demon spider. Several days later, Dorame and Gucci came to Teju village. This time Daga and Anne accompanied Machio to welcome the guests. After they became acquainted, Gucci presented the gift of friendly relations between Teju village and the Dorame kingdom. Gucci says that the Dorame kingdom is south of Teju village. Machio is amazed by the item given by Dorame because it is a very luxurious sword. Then Machio wanted to welcome them to the village. But Machio wonders, why has Dorame always looked down since earlier? Can Dorame change his form? Then Gucci immediately ordered Dorame to change into human form and reintroduce himself to Machio. In Machio's mind, he saw Dorame, who was very nervous and only memorized one introductory sentence. Maybe Gucci had told him to memorize it. Then Dorame visited Teju village until night. He really enjoyed the food and drink there. Even Dorame is addicted to drinking wine made in Teju village. He did not want to go home and wanted to continue to live in this village. But Gucci said that the people of Dorame would be worried if Dorame wasn't there. So Dorame has to go home now. After all, Teju village had also given a gift back to Dorame containing various kinds of food. So Dorame can eat the food in the castle later. It's not good to visit other people's places until a night like this. After hearing that, Dorame obeyed Gucci and immediately returned to his castle. The next day, Machio called Ria and Rita to discuss welcoming and serving village guests. Machio thought that there should be an inn to accommodate the guests. He also didn't want his main house and his wives to be their welcoming place. Ria and Rita suggested that lodging should be rather large to accommodate more than 30 people, because many other villagers may have to travel long distances to get to this village, so they need a good and comfortable place to rest. Previously, Teju village guests could easily access the road here because they had the ability. After the discussion was over, Machio and his wives immediately built an inn with an open hall to welcome the guests later. After the inn was built, Machio wanted to discuss the procedures and systems for welcoming guests with all the residents and his wives. Machio suggests Kudal, Maria, and Koron lead the guests to the village. Machio doesn't want what happened to Bizzle to happen again. Then the wooden bell that Zabathan usually wears is a very fatal thing. When Zabathan rings the bell, it means there is danger in the forest, and the lizardmen immediately bring weapons like this. Because of that, Zabathan was given an iron bell so that the residents could distinguish the sound. Wooden bells for danger alerts, and iron bells for guests coming to Teju village. After that, Machio plans to welcome the guests with Rue and Tia. But Anne is angry because Machio is too easygoing to respond to other people. Anne suggested a few people welcome the guests. It was likely that criminals were posing as guests, and Machio couldn't have noticed that alone. Daga also suggested multiplying the high elf race, some Kijin race maids, and lizardmen. Then Flora wants to be part of welcoming the guests, but Machio apologized to Flora because he wanted Flora to keep an eye on the guests staying in Teju village later. The vampire race has the ability not to sleep for several days, but Machio still warned Flora not to force herself to stay up all night. A few days later, Zabathan rang the iron bell, and Machio and the others greeted the arriving guests. They were the Beastmen race from Howling Village in the eastern mountain region. Garf, the village's representative, wants to have a close relationship with Teju village. Then Rue tells Machio to be quiet, and Rue will take care of these guests. Rue asks them sadistically, "Are all your friends here? We will take you to the village inn." If there were only these 5 people, Teju village would consider some beastmen in the forest enemies. Garf apologized that some of his friends might get lost in this forest. Rue says that Garf and the others should behave in Teju village. If not, they will always be watched by someone mysterious here. After hearing that, Garf and the others promise not to repeat their previous treatment. Then the welcoming ceremony began. But Machio feels strange about the behavior of his wives. They locked Gaft and the others in the room. Tia, Rue, and Anne said they didn't bring anything as a token of introduction like the previous guests. It was the normal rule for guests wishing to forge close ties between territories. They even hid the Beastmen army in the forest. This is very suspicious. Kudal, Maria, and Koron actually saw this army of Beastmen. But according to them, the Beastmen didn't threaten the village, so they didn't catch the Beastmen. In the afternoon, Machio saw the maids preparing 2 simple food for the Beastmen. and was annoyed and answered as Tia and Ru said. This is the difference in courtesy for people who want to establish relations between regions. So Machio just needs to sit back and watch his wives deal with this problem. Then Machio wants Anne to keep serving wine to the beastmen.
ワインは出さないつもりなのか？そうか。
Machio feels guilty for preparing such an overly simple meal, but Tia and Ru say that Machio should get rid of such feelings of consideration. There was still the possibility that these beastmen were enemies. Even Anne is still annoyed with Machio because he serves them wine. Then Machio quickly chatted with Garf about Howling Village. Garf said that the residents in his village were workers in the mining and often hunted in the forests. They owned a large number of tools in the village and often traded in these tools. But sadly, the Howling Village was having a hard time trading with the human villages. There were several problems there that caused Howling Village trade to not go smoothly. Because of that, they are looking for other places or villages so that the village trade can run again. Garf and the others were able to find out about Teju village thanks to the Demon King's announcement. Garf and the others were overjoyed at tasting this sumptuous and delicious food. If they stayed hidden in the forest now, they would definitely regret it. Then Tia deliberately approached one of the beastmen and asked, "Why are some of you hiding in the forest?" They replied that it was for their protection so they could know the situation of the new place. If there was trouble or war, the hidden beastmen could immediately report to the Howling Village chief. Upon hearing that, Machio and his wives were relieved that the beastmen were not enemies of Teju village.
しっかりと情報収集をしてくれている。頼もしい。
Several days later, Garf discussed the Howling Village trade negotiations with Machio. Howling Village wanted to trade with physical goods because they didn't have any currency as a means of transaction. They produce a wide range of quality tableware, home furnishings, metals, and paints. Of course, these are all processed products from their mining. Then Howling Village wanted Teju Village to sell vegetables and food. But Garf wanted Teju Village to come to Howling Village because the journey to this forest was very far. In fact, they needed to pass through several mountains to get to Teju Village. Teju Village has the fastest navigation since they live in this forest. Someday Garf wants to make a market for these two villages, Howling Village and Teju Village. In Machio's mind, Teju Village also didn't have currency for transactions. Maybe later, he should think of a way to create currency to make transactions easier. Then Teju Village has many inferno wolves or demon wolves, so Machio thought of asking them to help deliver the harvest to Howling Village. Because of that, Machio agreed with Garf's suggestion. Machio also really wanted glass cutlery, and so did his wives. After that, Garf and his friends wanted to return to Howling Village, but they apologized to Machio first. Howling Village didn't offer anything as a token of introduction or establishing close ties between the regions. It was because the Howling Village had long been in poverty. Their trade was in trouble, so Howling Village didn't have the habit of giving away goods or anything every time they visited a new territory. After hearing that, Machio and his wives finally understood Howling Village's situation. Machio didn't mind because Howling Village already had good intentions of visiting Teju Village. Upon hearing that, Garf and the others gave their thanks and immediately returned to Howling Village.
そう言ってもらえると気が楽になるな。
いや、どうか気にしないでくれ。
次回は必ず。
A few weeks later, Tia and the lizardmen decided to deliver Teju Village's harvest to Howling Village. At first, Machio wants to come with them, but Tia and Ru suggest that Machio stays in the village. It wouldn't be good if the first trade deal brought in an important person like Machio. That's how merchants work in this world. So, as Machio's wife, Tia will represent Teju Village in transactions with Howling Village. Actually, the journey to Howling Village took 10 days, but it turns out that Dorame offered to help Teju Village trade in exchange for a barrel of wine. Dorame has been visiting Teju Village recently and always brings luxury goods. Of course, Machio's wives were happy to see all the items Dorame gave them, while Dorame just wants to have fun drinking wine until he gets drunk and goes home. Then Dorame and the others said goodbye to Machio and headed to Howling Village. But when they got there, the Howling villagers were very surprised, because they thought the dragon wanted to attack the village. Then Tia screamed to greet them so they wouldn't be scared. When Tia wanted to hand over all the harvest that Teju Village brought with her, the Howling villagers hesitated because it was the first time they had seen the new food. Then Tia convinced them to try the fruits from Teju Village. After they ate it, Tia finally managed to make a transaction with the Howling Village. But when Tia returns to Teju Village, Dorame is disappointed that there is no wine barrel left from their transaction. Because of this, Machio invites Dorame to join a party in Teju village. Dorame can drink as much wine as he wants tonight. After hearing that, Dorame was very happy because Machio was so kind to him. Then Tia reported that the chief of Howling Village wanted to order some of his residents to live and work in Teju village, possibly about more than 20 young girls to make trading transactions easier. Machio is happy to have extra workers in Teju village, but he thinks that in Teju village, most of the population are women. In fact, they often ask for rations of night activities in bed with Machio. Machio is very exhausted from too many girls he serves. Because of that, Machio wants Tia to convey to the Howling Village chief that Teju village needs at least 2 more young men. A few days later, Tia brought some people from Howling Village. Their representative is Sena, a shy and obedient girl.
私はセナと言います。この度は移住を受け入れてもらい
Sena hoped that Teju village would not throw her away. In exchange, the girls of Howling Village are ready to do whatever Machio wants. Upon hearing that, Machio said Sena and the others were worrying too much about it. Machio knew they were nervous because it was their first time visiting Teju village. So Machio wanted them to rest at the inn first. If they are used to living in the Teju village, they can ask for a house or anything from Machio and his wives. After hearing that, Sena and her friends were pleased that Teju village accepted them to live here. Then Sena kept her promise that Howling Village should bring young men to Teju village. But it turns out the reality is like this. It's indeed young men, but Machio intends to add teenagers, not children like that. Even so, the safety of Machio's Iron Bird is still guaranteed in the future. He had to be strong to wait for these children to reach their teenage years, while the other High Elves can't wait to taste these boys, so that the High Elves can give birth to many children. But they are not Shota lovers, so they have to wait many more years to enjoy lust's extraordinary satisfaction.